Around the world, millions of people are asking the same question in private, but very few leaders will say it out loud on camera. Should the current president of Israel face war crimes charges for what is happening in Gaza and Lebanon? Tonight, we're not going to shout slogans. We're going to walk through the legal definition of war crimes, what genocide actually means, and compare that step by step to the actions of Israel's leadership. By the end, you'll be able to answer one question for yourself. Does what we are seeing meet the threshold for international justice or not? This video is not a court, and I am not a judge. Only an international tribunal can formally try a sitting leader. But ordinary people have the right and the responsibility to understand what the law says and what the evidence shows. So we'll break this into 4 parts: the legal standards, Gaza, Lebanon, and finally the question of responsibility at the top. Under international law, a war crime is not simply doing something bad in war. It means serious violations of the laws of war, deliberate attacks on civilians, disproportionate force, collective punishment, or targeting hospitals and schools. Crimes against humanity go further: widespread or systematic attacks on a civilian population, carried out as policy. And genocide is the hardest word of all. Legally, it means acts committed with the intent to destroy, in whole or in part, a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. Remember 4 words: intent, civilians, systematic, disproportionate. We're coming back to them. In Gaza, more than 30 months of sustained bombardment have followed October 7th, 2023. The Lancet and Brown University's Costs of War project estimate over 75,000 violent deaths. UNICEF reports more than 17,000 children killed and 33,000 injured, an average, in the words of UNICEF's executive director, of 28 children killed each day, the equivalent of an entire classroom. UNRWA reports roughly 1.9 million people displaced, about 90% of Gaza's population, many displaced multiple times. Supporters of Israel's leadership argue this is a lawful, if tragic, response to an armed group embedded in civilian areas. Critics, including UN officials, human rights organizations, and legal scholars, argue the scale of destruction, repeated strikes on hospitals and schools, and the siege of food, water, fuel, and medicine meet the threshold of collective punishment and potentially war crimes or genocide. Genocide requires intent, and intent can be inferred from patterns of conduct and from the public statements of officials. Now shift the map north. Since late 2024, Israeli operations against Hezbollah have expanded into a broader campaign across southern Lebanon. Tens of thousands displaced, hundreds killed, thousands of strikes recorded across the blue line. From Israel's leadership, the argument is self-defense against hostile forces. From Lebanese civilians and international observers, it looks like another front where non-combatants pay the price. International law demands 2 things: distinction between fighters and civilians, and proportionality, that military advantage not be outweighed by civilian harm. When the same pattern appears on 2 fronts, people begin to ask if this is a consistent doctrine that meets the threshold for war crimes. So, should Israel's current president face war crimes charges? Legally, prosecutors would need to show 3 things: that serious violations occurred, that they were widespread or systematic, and that top leaders ordered, approved, or knowingly failed to stop them. Those calling for charges point to scale, repetition, siege tactics, and inflammatory public statements. Those opposed point to the complexity of urban warfare, issued warnings, and armed groups operating from civilian areas. But there's a second, brutal reality. International justice is political. Powerful allies, vetoes, and diplomatic pressure can block or delay any case. Whether a sitting president ever faces a courtroom is not only a legal question, it's a geopolitical one. I can't tell you what to think, but closing your eyes is not neutral. Choosing not to know is a decision. Look up the definitions yourself. Read reports from every side. Then answer honestly. Should Israel's current president face war crimes charges? Tell me why in the comments. Share this with someone who still thinks it's too complicated to understand. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it.